Chapter 2. No Place Like Home. In the story of The Wizard of Oz, Dorothy temporarily leaves her earthly home to visit a dreamlike world. When we come to Earth, we do the opposite. We temporarily leave a dreamlike world commonly known as heaven to visit Earth. Our heavenly home is dreamlike because the sights and sounds we experience there go beyond the limited realities of Earth. It is our permanent home. We forget that fact when we come to Earth because amnesia blocks those memories. Fortunately, documented stories of the souls who have visited heaven during near-death or out-of-body experiences help us to remember our real home. Doctors like Michael Newton, Ph.D., and Brian L. Weiss, M.D., have interviewed thousands of human subjects. Using hypnosis to get past their brains, they've spoken directly to the souls connected to them. Through this research done by doctors like them, here's what we've learned about heaven. First, heaven. If we generalize what we've learned from souls who recount near-death and life-between-life experiences, then heaven appears to have two areas. The first is a spectacular place we visit when we leave Earth temporarily during a near-death experience. If we think of Earth as a controlled venue, like a downtown New York theater, then this first area of heaven is like leaving that theater and going to some place memorable, like Times Square. In downtown New York City, Times Square is an area brilliantly lit with larger-than-life electronic billboards. It has a mixture of music and entertainment, with sights and sounds coming from all directions. Groups of friends and family walk around this area, taking in the experiences designed to create lasting memories. Each person who visits ends up having a unique experience shaped by their expectations and the perspectives they bring to Times Square. The same is true for souls when they leave their humans prematurely and visit the first area of heaven. These souls experience sights and sounds designed to excite their senses and create memories that will influence their lives when they return to Earth. If souls go to this first heaven when the human's body and brain die prematurely on Earth, how do humans gain the memories of the soul's experiences when the body comes back to life? It's suggested by some that these memories are simply hallucinations. This conjecture has been disproven by science because people who have memories of a visit to heaven when they die temporarily don't have a functioning brain that could fabricate such memories. In his book Proof of Heaven, neurosurgeon Dr. Eben Alexander talks about how during his near-death experience, his brain activity was monitored closely. That monitoring showed his neocortex, where imaginations are created, was completely inactive. Dr. Alexander describes his NDE as a technically near-impeccable near-death experience. With his brain activity being monitored throughout the entire ordeal, he had irrefutable scientific proof of the impossibility that what he experienced was a fantasy created within his brain. So where do those memories come from? They are brought back by the soul. When a soul temporarily leaves their human's body, they gather memories of the experience for themselves, and also for the humans they will reunite with. The memories for themselves help them learn ways to improve their human partnership when they return to Earth. The memories souls bring back for their humans are intended to make the human more inclined to cooperate with the soul as they go through earthly life together. The type of memories the soul brings back for their human are intended to instill a validation of their attitudes toward heaven. This validation ideally helps humans be more cooperative whenever the soul tries to maneuver the rest of its life with its human. Here's a scenario of how the experience of visiting the first heaven could help both the soul and human. Let's say the soul is living inside a human who is Christian, but whose only religious activity is going through the motions of attending weekly church services. The human believes in God and Jesus and believes he will see Jesus when he dies. Let's also say that the soul who has partnered with that human wants to be doing more charity work while on Earth, but the apathetic attitude of its human offers few opportunities for doing good works for others. Then the human has a near-death experience, and the soul enters the first area of heaven. The soul is met by a being of light who is most likely its heavenly life coach or spirit guide. We will go into depth about spirit guides when we talk about the second heaven. To meet the human's expectations that Jesus meets people when they go to heaven, The memory the soul brings back to its human is that in heaven it was greeted by a loving being of light. The human's beliefs and expectations interpret that heavenly being as Jesus. Thinking this validates its belief about heaven, the human is motivated to do more good works. During this same trip to the first area of heaven, souls also go through a discussion with their spirit guide about how their human partnership is going. The spirit guide goes through a review of the life lived so far and shows the soul where they had opportunities to encourage their human to do charity work but didn't take them. The soul learns how it could have been more encouraging, especially when the human's church is looking for charity work volunteers. The soul goes back to Earth after the near-death experience knowing how to better encourage its human, and the human's brain is now more receptive to volunteering for charity work, believing it met Jesus in heaven. As unique as these temporary visits are for souls who enter this first area of heaven, there are some similarities among these first heaven experiences. In his book, The Light Beyond, Dr. Raymond A. Moody listed the most popular commonalities reported by near-death experiencers he interviewed. 2 decades later, another researcher, Dr. Jeffrey Long, in his book Evidence of the Afterlife, chronicled his findings based on an international study of 1,600 NDE subjects. His results were similar to Moody's. Here are the experiences these researchers found that are shared by more than half of the souls during an NDE where they visit the first heaven. Out of body. These near-death experiences often begin with the soul leaving the human they inhabited and seeing that body from a distance. As we've read in stories like George Ritchie's and Vicky Noratuck's, sometimes souls don't immediately understand they've shed their human costume when they find themselves outside the body of their dead human. Transition. More often than not, the next step involves a feeling of traveling up. This transition can begin by floating to the top of the room, then above the building, maybe above the neighborhood, and then seeing the earth from a distance. Others report entering a passageway or tunnel-like experience where they rapidly approach a bright light at the end of the darkened tunnel. Still others skip the travel from earth to heaven. Their transition typically goes from feeling alive to immediately being in heaven. Don Piper, in his book 90 Minutes in Heaven, recalls skipping the travel. He said one moment he was seeing the scene of the accident where he died, and the next he was enveloped by a brilliant light beyond earthly comprehension or description. In that next moment, he was standing in heaven. Brilliant lights. In the first heaven, souls typically bring back memories of seeing different sources of brilliant light. Sometimes it is a world of light that gets brighter as they travel further into it. The brightest concentration of light in this brightly lit world is described as a loving warmth that's more brilliant than the sun. Souls aren't blinded by this light, however, because they aren't seeing it through human eyes. Light plays a big part in most souls' visits to heaven. Dale Black, an airline captain in the book Imagine Heaven by John Burke, relates the light he experienced after a plane crash. Burke described it as the purest light he had ever seen. He said it was brighter than the sun. The closest comparison he could come up with for that light would be the brilliance of an exploding hydrogen bomb. Sometimes heavenly light comes from beings who radiate light. When young children die before they know the term angels, they refer to these heavenly beings of light as bright ones, or lights, or stars. Vincent Todd Tolman, who died after carelessly ingesting a toxic energy drink, recalled the light he saw when entering heaven. In his book, The Light After Death, Tolman said he felt warmth from a source of light and turned to see what it was. He described a man who appeared both middle-aged and timeless, and who glowed bright white. He had a full head of white shoulder-length hair that resembled a lion's mane, a white beard, and wore a pure white robe. Tolman asked the being if he was Jesus or God. The heavenly being chuckled at the thought and then introduced himself as Tolman's personal spirit guide. When souls bring back memories of meeting light beings, humans interpret these as meeting Jesus or God, even though the being of light may never have introduced itself as either. Religious people expect to meet Jesus or God because they aren't taught about other beings of light like spirit guides. Greeters. Going from a traumatic experience on earth to suddenly being in heaven can be very disorienting and unsettling for some souls. Quite often these souls are greeted in the first heaven by other soulmates who have come to show the soul some familiar faces. These soulmates, who normally appear as a cluster of energy, can project face and body images to the returning soul. Typically, when we are permanently in heaven and meet fellow souls, we can read their consciousness and personality and identify who they are without needing to see a face and body. But when a soul enters the first area of heaven, their confusion with coming out of earthly amnesia may make it difficult to read other souls' energy. Soulmates who greet them will project the appearance of people they played on earth during that soul's lifetime to comfort the confused soul with familiar faces. In his book Journey of Souls, Dr. Michael Newton talked to a soul who recalled his greeter when he entered heaven. Newton asked the soul if anyone had come to greet him on his return to heaven. The soul, while reliving the experience, called out, "Uncle Charlie." Newton asked him why this particular person came to greet him. The soul says it's because he loved this uncle more than anybody, and so Charlie came to hold his hand and lead him further into the light. Though Uncle Charlie was pure energy and consciousness, his soul projected Uncle Charlie's human appearance for his nephew. The soul told Newton, "Uncle Charlie is just as fat as he used to be." Sometimes when a child has a near-death experience, they don't have close friends and family who've died before them. These souls are often greeted by angels. In his book, The Light Beyond, Dr. Moody talks about the first child he met who had a near-death experience. The child described his greeters as glowing angels who loved him very much. He added that everything in that place was filled with light, peace, and painlessness. When souls enter heaven from a painful life on earth, that pain is gone in heaven. Author Anita Moorjani tells her remarkable near-death story to David Sunfellow in his book The Purpose of Life. She writes about how she was in a hospital on her deathbed. Her human's body had stopped functioning because of Hodgkin's lymphoma. She left that body and went to heaven where she was freed from that agony. In heaven, she was told she left Earth prematurely and that life held more gifts for her that she'd miss if she stayed in heaven. She was given a choice to return to Earth, but Moorjani didn't want to go back to a body being consumed by cancer. She was reassured that if she chose to go back, she'd make a miraculous recovery and her cancer would be cured quickly. She returned to Earth. When she awoke in the hospital, the doctors were elated and baffled by the test results they had just gotten back, showing cancer no longer existed anywhere in her body. Moorjani went on to write about her experiences in her book Dying to Be Me. Intensely positive feelings. During their temporary trip back to heaven, souls expressed the overwhelming feelings they were bathed in a light of love and acceptance, regardless of how negative their earthly life might have been. In the book Purpose of Life, near-death experiencer Amy talks about how she never felt chastised in heaven, even though she admits being very cruel at times and hurtful to many people. She lost her temper in horrible ways and had great trouble with forgiveness, but while in first heaven all she felt was love and understanding. In that same book, near-death experiencer Louisa Peck described herself as an adamant atheist. She remembered the bliss of love from the light she encountered and missed it terribly when she returned to Earth. She said she knew the light was real, but even after the experience, she didn't want to admit it. Souls commonly recall the feelings when entering first heaven as acceptance, warmth, caring, understanding, joy, and most importantly, unconditional love. All knowledge. When we enter the first heaven and lose our amnesia, we gain an immediate understanding of how the pieces of the universe fit together. The soul of the blind accident victim, Vicky Noratuk, experienced this rush of knowledge and recalled feeling like heaven was a place that held all the answers to every question about life, the planets, God, and everything. Vincent Todd Tolman, in his book The Light After Death, described this surge of knowledge he felt when disconnecting from his human as a massive information download. After Tolman's information download, he met with his spirit guide in First Heaven. His guide said they were going to pursue more learning. Tolman said he felt he had nothing to learn because he was Christian and already knew everything he needed to know. Tolman said his spirit guide opened his mind to the immensity of just a portion of the universe, and he understood principles that went well beyond his simple, tiny existence. He felt as if his spirit guide was saying they were going to learn how to build a cruise ship, and Tolman was holding up a tiny boat to demonstrate he already knew all he needed to know about boats. Thought. In heaven, we are energy and consciousness. Other heavenly beings can read our thoughts and know our authentic personality. Our true intentions are there for everyone to perceive. Thoughts are a very important part of the soul's experience in heaven. Energy clusters don't have mouths to speak or ears to hear. All communication happens via thoughts. Tolman realized when traveling in First Heaven with his spirit guide that they weren't talking like one person speaks to another on earth. He said they communicated mind to mind, spirit to spirit. He described this telepathy with his spirit guide as similar to two-way radio communication. Tolman said he'd ask a question in his mind, and his spirit guide would return the answer instantly. This is something we can also do on Earth. When people have a deep spiritual connection with other humans and their ego doesn't block the transmission or reception of the messages, thoughts can travel between them. Marlo Morgan, in her book Mutant Message Down Under, recounts experiencing a telepathic event while doing an extended walkabout with an indigenous tribe of Australians. Over the months she traveled with them, she learned how they lived with a deep spiritual connection to nature, each other, and the universe. She first became aware of their telepathic abilities one night when she was with them out in the wilderness, preparing to retire for the evening under the stars. Lying on the ground with the rest of the tribe, her thoughts turned to thankfulness. Taking a cue from the gratitude her companions expressed regularly throughout their day, she offered up a silent thank you to the heavens for the unique and enlightening opportunity she was enjoying with the tribe. Right after that, she noticed that someone at the far end of the camp said something. It was repeated from one person to another until the tribesman closest to her said to her, "You are welcome. This day is good." Later, the tribe revealed they regularly used telepathy as their main method of communicating. Because they had nothing to hide, they readily shared their thoughts with the group, whose open minds and spiritual connections allowed them to hear each other's thoughts. Telepathy was used in the Bible story where some of Jesus' apostles were preaching after his death. In the book of Acts, chapter 2, verse 6, it states these apostles were delivering a message to a group. The audience was made up of travelers from many different countries with no common language among them. As the apostles preached, coming from their mouths was an indecipherable gibberish known as tongues. Some of the audience suggested the apostles sounded like they were drunk, yet in the minds of those witnessing them preach, each heard the apostles' messages in their native language. The apostles used telepathy to get around the language barriers. People may not realize it, but they are using thought communication when they silently pray or hear that guiding voice in their head known as intuition. Life review. Humans have a lot of primitive drives that guide their behaviors. To keep these drives in check, earthly leaders develop rules of behavior. When people disobey those rules, other humans review the facts to judge how poorly those people conformed to their rules and then hand out punishments. The punishments are created to discourage humans from disobeying the rules again. This is the human mentality: obey or be judged and punished. When humans hear stories of heavenly life reviews from religious leaders, they are told these are conducted by the ultimate rule maker and punisher, God. They are led to believe the life review is like a courtroom where proof is presented to determine our guilt and punishment. This misinterpretation of the life review is a product of a fear-based mentality and could not be further from the truth. Souls who have gone through life reviews describe them as reliving their lives and seeing where they can improve themselves. Souls learn how their actions affect others so they can be more empathetic and aware of how minor behaviors can have a major positive or negative impact on others. Unlike the common religious opinions, during the life review, the soul is the only one judging their actions. This review is particularly important to the soul during their brief visit to the first heaven because they will soon be returning to earth to continue improving themselves, and what they learn during the review helps them know where to concentrate their efforts. We will talk more about these life reviews when we talk about the second heaven. Belief-driven experiences. Another commonality among near-death experiences when a soul briefly visits the first heaven is they may retain remnants of humanness. These remnants hold their humans' beliefs and expectations of what heaven is like and shape the experiences the souls have. Randy Kay, in his popular YouTube series Revelations from Heaven, interviewed a young man, Liam Bielik, who as a child accidentally fell into an unattended swimming pool and drowned at the age of 3. Bielik was born into a devout Roman Catholic family. After he died, Bielik skipped a transitional experience and went from drowning at the bottom of the pool to instantly appearing in the first area of heaven. Bielik described first heaven as an endless white room with hundreds of toys all around him. Many of the toys were trains which he was obsessed with at the time. At one point while he was playing with the toys, he noticed a man approaching. The man knelt next to him and put his arm around him. When Bielik turned to look, he saw the man had a beard and long brown hair, much like the traditional Catholic concept of Jesus. Texas Baptist preacher Don Piper wrote in his book 90 Minutes in Heaven that whenever he thought of heaven, he anticipated seeing the pearly gates, as mentioned in the Bible. When he entered first heaven, he saw what he expected, a gate that was pearlescent. He said the gate glowed and shimmered like someone had spread pearl icing on it. His heavenly experience incorporated his humans' beliefs of a pearly gate. It also included him hearing hymns of praise, just like the songs sung at the Sunday worship services he conducted as a Baptist preacher. While in first heaven, Piper said he heard unending praise in the form of song, hundreds of songs. In those songs, he could tell they were worshiping God with words of praise like Hallelujah and Praise to the King. His near-death experience of heaven was uniquely shaped by his humans' beliefs and expectations. Reluctance to return. Souls that visit first heaven certainly want to stay there, especially the souls of children who have a near-death experience when their earthly journey has just begun. But most souls don't come to earth just to leave it right away. The souls of young people who have near-death experiences need to return to Earth to finish their planned life, but these souls have free will. This makes it challenging for the loving beings of light who attend to these children's souls. The heavenly beings know it is best for them if they return to finish their planned visit. They won't, however, force them to return to Earth. To help the heavenly beings in their efforts to convince children's souls to return to Earth, the experience of first heaven is usually different for them than it is for souls from adults. Typically, first heaven appears to the children's souls to be limited in size. This way, these souls know their experience is going to be restricted to the area they are in, and hopefully they won't be distracted by the temptation to journey beyond where they are. In his book, The Light Beyond, Raymond A. Moody talks about Dr. Melvin Morse of the Children's Orthopedic Hospital and Medical Center in Seattle, Washington, and a 7-year-old female patient of his. The patient confided in Dr. Morse that she had a near-death experience when she drowned. She described heaven as fun and bright with lots of flowers. She also mentioned there was a border around heaven she could not see past. Another child named Sam, interviewed by Moody, described first heaven as a beautiful pastoral scene. Sam said it was surrounded by a fence, and he was told by the angels that if he went beyond the fence, he wouldn't be able to return to his family on earth. The book, The Forever Angels, talks about other techniques used to get children's souls to return to Earth. One soul was informed he needed to go back because in the plan for his life, he would save his mother from a fire. Another child's soul that didn't want to leave was shown the mother of his human crying because her son was dead. This convinced him to return to Earth. With another child's soul, these heavenly beings asked, "Do you want to go back to Earth?" And he answered, "No." Then they asked, "Do you want to see your mother?" And when he replied, "Yes," he was instantly transported back into his human's body on Earth. Later, we will learn the important work we have to do on Earth that makes it essential we return to the planet. Second heaven. If we think of first heaven as being Times Square, then second heaven is like returning to your comfortable neighborhood on the outskirts of the city to be with your family and friends. Second heaven is our eternal home. It is where we normally live once we've finished an earthly visit. In second heaven, we live with the other souls who make up our soul cluster or soul group. We can see other souls in other groups, but we primarily associate with our soulmates. In our group of soulmates, we have a primary soulmate who incarnates on Earth at the same time we do, and typically plays a major role in our lives on Earth. Most times, our primary soulmate is our spouse, partner, or a very significant other person in our life. The other soulmates from our soul group who incarnate with us on Earth may play supporting roles such as our children, close relatives, friends, neighbors, mentors, or people who play an important part in shaping our experience on Earth. Together, members of soul groups come to Earth to help each other learn and accomplish goals during each lifetime. We will talk more about these goals in the chapter on life planning. In his books, Journey of Souls and Destiny of Souls, Dr. Michael Newton talked to thousands of souls who described their journeys back to second heaven. Here are some of the things Newton learned during interviews with those souls. Death. The first step in returning to our heavenly home requires that our human dies. When we shed our human's body, we become invisible. We have an out-of-body experience where we can see our family and friends who remain on Earth, but they only see our human's lifeless body and not us there among them. Souls don't immediately have to head to heaven after their human dies. There is no rush to get back home. Life in heaven is timeless, so there's no schedule we have to meet. Quite often, souls will remain on Earth to comfort their grieving loved ones and make sure their family can cope with their death. In case one of his book, Destiny of Souls, Dr. Newton writes about the soul of a man he spoke to during a hypnosis session who stayed around to comfort his grieving wife after his human's death. After the funeral, she was sitting in their house sobbing. The soul of her husband was in her presence, but she didn't feel him. Using energy, he covered her with a comforting blanket of warm energy. This melted her darkness, and she felt his presence. She stopped crying, looked around the room, and smiled. He knew then she would be okay. If our earthly friends and family are prepared for our death because we suffered a prolonged illness, then we might not stay around Earth after we disconnect from our human body, but we always have that option. Sometimes souls whose human has died will incarnate again for a short period before completely leaving the earth. This is what Jesus is said to have done after his death. In the Bible's book of John, chapter 20, he visited Mary Magdalene at his tomb and the apostles who were in hiding. Then he returned a week later to show himself to doubting Thomas. Incarnating again on earth before heading to our heavenly home is not normal for a soul to do, but it's also not unusual. Years ago, a woman in our neighborhood talked about an experience she had when walking her dog. She used to walk every morning, and when she was halfway through her walk, she'd often meet up with an older gentleman, Ralph, from the neighborhood, who was also out walking. He would pet her dog, and they would talk for a bit before going their separate ways. One morning she was walking her dog when she met up with Ralph. He petted her dog, but he looked a little pale and wasn't his talkative self. After the two of them separated, the woman went home and called another neighbor who also knew Ralph. She told the neighbor she was concerned about Ralph because he didn't look or act quite like himself when they met that morning. There was a long pause before the neighbor responded, "Ralph died from a heart attack a few days ago." Traveling home. Once we decide to head home, our soul is gently pulled into the heavenly realm. For some souls, this stage is where the scenario of the light at the end of a tunnel comes from. At this stage of our journey back to heaven, going through the tunnel would be like taking the subway home to our neighborhood from downtown New York. Different space and time. On Earth, when we want to move from point A to point B, we have to make the trip physically. Once we leave our humans, our movements are no longer limited and can travel by thought. We can be floating near the ceiling in a hospital room watching staff trying to revive our human's body, and the next instance we can visit our family sitting in their homes. In heaven, if we see a group of friends in the distance and want to be near them, we can instantly be surrounded by them. Time is also different in heaven. It is no longer something measured with a clock or calendar. On earth, we get the feeling time is linearly moving from one moment to the next because when our human begins a task, the clock advances, sunlight changes position, and over time they get tired. In heaven, there are no clocks. The light never turns to dark, and we don't get tired or die. Once we leave our human, we realize that all moments in time are happening concurrently. As souls, we can travel to any part of Earth's timeline. We can visit Egypt and watch the building of the pyramids, or we can hang out with astronauts who've colonized Mars. There is never a sense of time for souls, because all moments in time are available to them simultaneously. It's hard for us to imagine that all moments in time are happening now, because a human's limited perception gives us the illusion that we can only live in the present, and other times are not accessible. When we take off the human costume and look at life through soul vision, we see that all moments in time are available for us to see and jump to. Some rare humans have cooperative relationships with their souls and can regularly use their soul's vision to see how future events will most likely unfold for someone. We know these humans as psychics. All knowledge. Similar to first heaven, when we enter second heaven, we shed our remnants of humanness and the amnesia we adopted for our earthly visit. Our mind goes from understanding very little about life to getting all our questions answered. The influx of information is described as a feeling of it being downloaded. In the book The Purpose of Life, one soul described the experience as trillions of billions of gigabytes of information downloaded to him. He said it felt like being connected to the main source of information. Heightened senses. Also like the first heaven, when we are outside of the restrictive human body and its limited senses, our consciousness experiences indescribable sights and sounds. Our vision goes from seeing only what's in front of us to seeing everything around us. It's described as 360-degree vision, up, down, front, back, and sides all around simultaneously. The color palette in second heaven is more plentiful than the small spectrum of visible colors we see on earth. Heavenly hearing is also exponentially enhanced. In his book, 90 Minutes in Heaven, Don Piper said the unworldly sounds that filled his mind and heart were difficult to describe. He heard the sound of angels' wings that sounded like a beautiful, holy melody, a swishing sound he described as a form of never-ending praise. He also heard hundreds of hymns being sung at the same time. What was remarkable to Piper is that each blended perfectly with the other, and he could clearly distinguish each song. Authentic personality. Negative effects gathered by our personality come from unloving events we experience while on earth. In second heaven, feeling loved, understood, and appreciated allows us to put aside any emotional baggage or traumatic scars our soul personality may have gotten while experiencing the restrictive and assaulting environment on earth. When we arrive in second heaven, we compartmentalize those trauma scars into something like a school backpack and put them aside temporarily. Then we resort back to our positive, authentic personality. Heavenly homework. Once we are settled back into the safe environment of heaven, we can retrieve what is inside those backpacks to see what homework we brought home. This homework tells us what emotional and traumatic scars to work on. We may forget the majority of these during our existence in heaven, but we don't completely erase them because these are areas we may need to work on when planning future lives. Between earthly incarnations, heavenly teacher souls advise us on how to better understand emotional traumas and handle their triggers. Then we head back to earth to work through those emotions and use what we learned in heaven to help us better handle these emotions when they resurface again. Greeters. At the end of our earthly journey, the greeters we meet are typically our soulmates who've returned to heaven before we did. As we enter heaven, they welcome us by projecting familiar faces, so we recognize who they were in our recent life on earth. It's like in the movie The Wizard of Oz, where Dorothy returns home from Oz and wakes to see the farm hands, Hunk, Zeke, and Hickory. She points out that in her visit to Oz, Hunk was a scarecrow, Zeke played a cowardly lion, and Hickory was a tin man. Our greeters are most likely our spouse, siblings, friends, or favorite relatives. Sometimes greeters don't wait until we show up in heaven to welcome us home. This is especially true when someone is slowly dying from a terminal illness. In these cases, soulmates who've died before us may visit us earlier while we are still on Earth in the process of dying. In 2005, Dr. John Lerma, hospice doctor and author of Into the Light, interviewed over 500 hospice patients and their caregivers just hours to days before death. He found that in 85% of those interviews, close family members who were deceased came to visit those patients. 80% of those greeters came to smooth the patient's transition back to heaven. Surveyed patients also revealed that some greeters were angels standing watch, and their numbers increased dramatically as death drew closer. Greeters are especially helpful for those who die suddenly. Living inside a human 1 minute and not the next can be disorienting. Very young souls whose humans die suddenly don't usually have family members or friends who have died before them. They get special angel greeters to help them transition to heaven. In her book, What It Is Like to Die and What Comes After, Kay Milens communicates with souls whose humans have died. She also talks to angels who tell her there are mommy angels who are loving and nurturing and tend to children's souls when they return to heaven. These angels are particularly attentive to the souls of young children who die suddenly because of murder or accidents. In one story, Milens tells about 11-year-old Isaac Helms, who was murdered by a sex offender. The angels told her that his soul didn't feel the pain inflicted by the murder. His soul was gently removed from his body beforehand, and they did not let him see what was happening. He went straight into the arms of angels. Souls can typically leave their bodies early when it's apparent their human is about to experience mortal danger. If we don't need the comfort of family, friends, or angels when we enter heaven, then we are met only by our spirit guide. Spirit guide. Spirit guides are our life coaches. They are experienced old souls who are primarily responsible for helping souls select the best earthly roles to play and then helping direct those souls while they are playing those roles on earth. There is at least one spirit guide assigned to each of us. They help us before, during, and after our earthly visit. Besides greeting us when we enter second heaven, these guides also assess our energy health so we aren't returning to our old neighborhood in bad shape. This energy check is important because earthly life can be challenging and demanding at best, and downright brutal or damaging to our energy at worst. How our energy survived our most recent life will determine where we go next. Arrival options. The majority of souls returning to heaven are tired. They look forward to being home to reunite with their soul group and to relax after their life on earth. Our spirit guide helps us reunite with the energy we left behind in heaven to make us feel stronger before sending us to our soul group. After meeting with our spirit guide, most of us continue upward and onward to the next stage. Some souls take other paths. When souls return with their energy completely depleted from a particularly draining earthly life, their contaminated energy needs a rejuvenating energy shower to remove the negativity and revive it. In Destiny of Souls, Case 19, a soul tells Dr. Newton about returning to second heaven after being killed in a surprise attack during a war. The soul recounts leaving the muddy battlefield and traveling toward the light. The soul's spirit guide approached and sent a powerful stream of energy at the soul like water from a fire hose. It helped reshape the soul's energy and removed the negative energy from the battlefield. Dr. Newton asked the soul if this is the energy shower other souls have told him about when a damaged soul returns to heaven. The soul confirmed it was. Another soul, Case 11 in Journey of Souls, told Dr. Newton about a special area where souls are showered with rejuvenating energy. The shower is described as a stream of liquid energy that swirled around them like a fire that bathed and cleansed them. Dr. Newton asked why they need such a treatment if they've lost their human body. The soul tells Dr. Newton that the energy of a soul can remain affected for a while after they enter heaven. Other souls return to heaven after a particularly unproductive life where they weren't able to accomplish what they'd hoped to. These souls are disappointed with how their human partnering went. Before they rejoin their soul group, they will put themselves in exile for a while so they can come to terms with how ineffective they were on Earth. In Case 16 from Destiny of Souls, Dr. Newton spoke to a more advanced soul who told him what happens to these disappointed souls. The advanced soul explained that the souls are disappointed because their actions resulted in something being unfinished, traumatic, or overwhelming. They refuse to talk to their spirit guides and go off to self-imposed exile. These souls create a personal space. It might be a garden setting or something like a room without windows. Eventually, their spirit guide will lovingly coax these souls to rejoin their soul group. If a soul returns from a recent earthly visit where they partnered with a dysfunctional brain or a human whose ego ran amok and the results were heinous acts, their soul energy may be severely damaged. In these cases, an energy shower isn't enough, and they need to go to a place of healing that souls refer to as the City of Shadows. Here, master souls can examine and repair the energy damage. These repairs make the soul's energy healthy and whole again, but it doesn't erase all the memories of the atrocities they experienced. These memories will be important for learning and for choosing their next life adventure. We will talk about selecting a new life in the chapter on life planning. When souls are ready to continue, they take the next step in their reorientation home. Life review. Once a soul's energy is in a more positive condition, their spirit guide has a one-on-one session where the soul discusses their recent trip to Earth. The attitude of the spirit guide during any review is one of helpfulness. Together, they review how well the soul accomplished the goals they set before they visited Earth. The chapter on life planning discusses these types of goals. This reliving occurs quickly because it's happening in the soul's consciousness and mainly includes their behaviors and relationships. All life reviews are intended to give souls a broader perspective of their actions. This is done by having the souls relive their experiences in the shoes of others. This way, they get to feel how others felt because of them. Seeing this other side gives souls a humbling, balanced view of each event. The main purpose of going through this type of review with unconditionally loving spirit guides is to help the souls learn empathy and compassion. In his book, The Purpose of Life, David Sunfellow told about one soul's life review where he relived a fist fight where he brutally beat another man. But this time he was the one receiving the blows. He felt his teeth cracking and tasted his bloody mouth. It was a complete role reversal intended to help the soul feel what he had done to another person. Souls not only learn the physical effects their actions have on others, but also the emotional effects. Sunfellow recounts another life review where a guy relived being a 10-year-old boy who bullied and beat another boy his age. He said during the review he felt the deep physical and emotional pain of the boy he had beaten and witnessed how the boy's negative energy radiated out from him, affecting everything in his path, people, birds, trees, and even insects. He could see how the boy's pain rippled throughout the world and how rocks were affected by this negativity. Witnessing the propagation of this negative energy and how it affected everything, he realized all things, including rocks, are alive. Balance is essential in the universe, which is why during any life review, souls relive their accomplishments as well as their poor choices. Sometimes these accomplishments are significant, like overcoming an addiction or rehabilitating a criminal mind. Quite often, however, souls are involved in events that seemed insignificant to them but are viewed by heavenly beings as remarkable. For example, Sunfellow recounts the story of Muhammad Z. During his review, Muhammad relived a time when he was traveling with his family through a barren land and they spotted a river nearby. He was asked by his parents to grab a bucket and fetch some water from the river. On his way back from the river, the weight of the filled bucket was too heavy and he decided to empty some of it. But instead of just pouring it on the ground, he walked out of his way to add water to the base of a tree that grew alone. During the life review, he said he received unbelievable applause for this simple act and said the reaction was like All the heavenly beings in the universe were filled with joy because of it. He learned the unusual reaction was because he had done something purely from the heart with absolutely no expectation for gain. Muhammad Z was the same soul who recounted bullying and beating a boy when he was 10 years old. Diane Morrissey was another soul who felt one of the actions covered in her review was insignificant. She said during her reviews she gained an understanding of how important the little things are in life. One of the events she relived was when she worked at a convalescent hospital in high school. After school, she'd work her shift, and during it, she'd visit a woman and give her graham crackers and milk. She recounted the reaction of the spirits during her life review and how it was like everyone was looking at her and saying, "Thank you for doing this." This woman had nobody. No one loved her. As a soul, we go through a life review to learn in a non-threatening environment, helped by an unconditionally loving spirit guide, where the only critic is ourselves. Spirit guides look upon a soul's actions as loving parents look at their children fumbling through their lives. Souls get upset with their mistakes, but our spirit guide understands we were trying our best and sometimes fall short of how we hoped we'd do. Returning to our soul group. Once we've completed the preliminary life review with our spirit guide, we return to the familiar love of our soul group. These soulmates are our closest friends. They are souls who've traveled with us on many journeys to help us grow in wisdom and love. During these journeys with them, we've exchanged roles between students and teachers. In many lives, we've acted as both. Our soulmates, similar to us, are also trying to achieve goals to improve themselves. Their successes encourage us, and their accomplishments inspire us. We do the same for them. After our life review, we have discussions with our soul group about our life experiences to help sort out what was productive and what was not. Returning to our soul group can be an emotional experience. They greet us warmly if we've just returned from a particularly tough life and give us comforting embraces. It may seem odd that energy beings can hug each other, but our energies can intertwine, and we can feel the embrace. Think about when you dream at night. Has there ever been a vividly real dream where you hugged someone? Didn't you feel their embrace, even though you were lying alone in bed, experiencing it simply in your mind? If so, then you can get an idea of what it would be like. The only difference is the loving energies of heaven make the experience grander. In Journey of Souls, one soul described a heavenly reunion with her mother who came to greet her on her return to heaven. Dr. Newton wanted to learn more about the reunion, but the soul asked him to hold his questioning as the souls embraced each other. Finally, Dr. Newton asked how they could be embracing when they are both pure energy. The soul described it as being wrapped in a bright light blanket of love. Not all reunions with our soulmates are deeply emotional. Some can be fun, depending on the personality of the soul group. In Journey of Souls, one soul returned to heaven after partnering with an Amsterdam artist who was vain about his clothes. When that soul returned to second heaven, he projected an image to his soulmates of wearing fancy buckled shoes, a bright green velvet jacket with yellow piping down the sides, and a big floppy painter's hat. Together, the soul group laughed about how seriously humans take their lives and how earthly life is one big stage play and humans are simply actors in a gigantic stage production. Sometimes our soul groups throw welcome back parties. In Destiny of Souls, Dr. Newton recounted one soul group's welcome home party that included music, wine, dancing, and singing. The theme was a classical Roman festival, complete with souls wearing togas. Activities. The activities available once we souls go back to heaven are endless. We can hang out in heaven with our soulmates or take trips around the universe. Living in heaven, we have the free will to choose everything we do. Souls who are recent arrivals to Earth after a long stay in heaven sometimes express this attitude of unlimited freedom when they have restrictions put on them. You'll hear them protest, "That's not fair." Here are some of the endless activities available to us when we return to our heavenly home. Adventures. If we crave familiar adventures but not partnering with a human, we can return to Earth with just enough energy for the experience, but not enough to be seen. Souls can also visit other worlds different than Earth to experience those environments. Our universe has trillions of other planets for us to visit and mind-blowing realms outside our universe to explore. We can have soul friends accompany us on our journeys, go with a travel group of other souls, or venture out on our own with an experienced explorer soul as our guide. No schedules or requirements keep us tethered to heaven once we are back to being pure energy and consciousness. The travel possibilities are endless. Social gatherings. We souls can attend heavenly sponsored social gatherings where we can meet souls from other groups. Relationships are important in heaven because they offer us a support group and also expose us to other souls with different abilities or personalities than those in our soul group. Gamies. If we souls want more energetic activities, there are many games we can play using energy. For example, one is a form of tag, where souls dart around trying to catch or elude each other. Another is a form of dodgeball, where souls create balls of energy and throw them at each other. The energy balls can be caught and thrown back. If an energy ball hits a soul, they aren't out of the game. They just learn they need to be more agile. Heavenly games are designed for playful learning. Game organizers in heaven emphasize cooperative activities that promote group participation rather than competition. Heavenly games are designed for learning about energy movement, dexterity, and group thought transmission. Music. Making music is another activity for souls. In Journey of Souls, Case 52 was a musical director in heaven who described how when souls apply themselves to instruments and voice sounds, the harmonic meshing of musical energy reverberates throughout the spirit world with indescribable sounds. Without the need for vocal cords and the audience being able to hear the music without the limitations of ears and a brain, music takes on a new dimension. For example, souls can sing both soprano and baritone song parts at the same time. Dancing. Without the restrictions of a body, soul dancing can take on other forms. One soul described her dancing activities with other souls as acrobatics. As bodies of pure energy, they set up an energy field that resembled a trampoline. She said the dance form was hard to describe, but included a great deal of laughter and fun. The movements during this recreation drew the souls closer together. Creating. In Destiny of Souls, Dr. Newton writes about what souls create. He says some souls recreate enjoyable memories and reconstruct an exact duplication of familiar earthly settings around where they used to live. These settings include the surrounding countryside, parks, and streets, and any structures that remind them of their old hometowns. They can also project an appearance similar to how they looked when they lived at those locations. Their soulmates can join them as they relive their earthly good times. As souls learn techniques for manipulating their powerful energy, there are teachers in heaven who assist them in more complex creation projects. Once they create a place or object, it remains in existence until the soul who created it loses interest in it. At that point, it dissolves back into energy for others to use. Skilled heavenly beings can produce anything from small living organisms, flowers, and animals to large buildings and vast landscapes. There is no limit to the power of what they can create, as seen in this next story from the book Where Angels Walk by Joan Wester Anderson. In the first chapter, she writes about what an angel created to help some stranded souls on Earth. These souls were partnered with 3 young men who set out on a driving trip from Connecticut to Illinois for the Christmas holidays. When they reached the Midwest, there were winter storms and temperature warnings. The friends stopped in Indiana to drop off one of the men. The other 2 continued driving, but soon their car died on a deserted road. The wind chill was 80 below zero, and there were no buildings within sight. Whether they stayed in the car or left to find help, the men would certainly freeze and die. In desperation, the driver silently prayed, "Well, God, you're the only one who can help us now." Miraculously, right after that prayer, there was a knock on the window. A tow truck driver asked if they needed assistance. They happily accepted his help, and the driver towed them back to their friend's house. When they arrived at the house, the 2 friends went inside to borrow money to pay the tow truck driver, but when they went back outside, the driver was gone, and the only tire tracks in the snow were a single set from their car. As heavenly beings, the creative power available to us is unlimited. One of the many great aspects of our heavenly home as souls is we all have free will. We can decide what we want to create or do. Our efforts won't be circumvented as long as we understand that what we choose comes with consequences, and those consequences can't negatively impact others. Building and designing. Creativity and creating are encouraged in heaven, which is why social gatherings can happen in places souls created like arenas, auditoriums, and stadiums. Other buildings souls report seeing in second heaven are schools and libraries because continued learning is what many souls use to advance themselves. In heaven, the idea of advanced doesn't mean better or more important. There is no hierarchical organization in heaven where some beings are above others. Advanced in heaven means souls are advancing their knowledge and skills to get closer to their personal goals. In heaven, some learning happens in the classroom and some outside of it. If a class wants to learn about designing, they can travel to a world that might be in the early stages of development to learn and practice that skill. Case 59 in Destiny of Souls tells of a design project involving a planet called Jaspier. This was a young planet, and part of its ecosystem was running amok. Runaway vine vegetation was threatening the food supply of the small land animals of Jaspier. The students traveled to that planet to design a solution. Instead of destroying the naturally occurring vine, they created an animal that would eat the vines to control the spread. They created a mutation of an existing small animal from the planet and then accelerated its growth so within 50 years, these new animals would grow and multiply to help get the vines under control. Learning. While there are a lot of fun activities in heaven, a good portion of souls don't want only recreation. They live in a place where love, support, and acceptance fill the air. They associate with a group of supportive souls who encourage them to be the best they can be. Heaven is a world filled with overachievers who inspire others to advance their skills and talents. In second heaven, we regularly meet souls who have developed skills beyond our own. Regardless of a soul's skill level, however, every soul makes every other soul feel encouraged, understood, and accepted. Heaven is a unique environment where empathy and respect are commonplace and unconditional love is the norm. Souls can decide they don't want to improve themselves and simply bask in the loving warmth of heaven and pursue pleasurable pastimes rather than learning. But in a world of powerful overachievers who want to learn their full potential, souls who are not involved in self-improvement stand out among their soul group members. Nonetheless, a soul has the free will to coast through their heavenly life or return to earth and have unchallenging lives if they want. Unmotivated souls are few and far between in heaven. Souls in a loving, supportive environment with healthy energy are naturally self-motivated to seek new experiences. They aren't weighed down by a human body that can be tired, chronically ill, or depressed. They aren't exhausted from responsibilities that weigh on them. They are free from all that when they leave Earth and have the energy and desire to experiment, explore, and learn. Heavenly schools are not structured with a mandatory curriculum. They cater to the learning needs of the individual souls and are more hands-on. Attending school is not a requirement, but rather a desire. Souls who have skills they want to sharpen or who want to obtain abilities other souls have readily attend schools to learn more. As you might imagine, the libraries in heaven are unique. Some are immense buildings with rooms so large the tables where souls sit to look through their books appear endless. The books aren't truly books either, but rather screens of energy that can turn into realistic, holographic, moving images that souls can enter to live part of the scene and practice decision-making. Besides participating in heavenly learning sessions, souls can also visit realms that are mentally or physically challenging to learn personal growth. Exposing themselves to these unique world classrooms strengthens different parts of their personalities. As we will learn in the Planning Life chapter, Earth is an advanced classroom that combines both physical and mental challenges. The challenges Earth presents to souls will grow their skills exponentially. It is not for the faint of heart, because its challenges are many. Even still, souls who want to accelerate their learning willingly visit this planet. Only the hardiest souls attempt the lessons earthly life has to offer. Learning Review. At some point after our return to heaven, we typically want to review our learning performance and plans with the Council of Elders. These elders are some of the most experienced, wise, and learned beings in heaven. They have been through thousands of lives and experienced unimaginable hardships and exhilarating highs during those lives in a variety of worlds. They are sometimes called the Council, the Elders, or the Wise Ones. We can go to them when we first arrive back from our journeys to create an updated learning curriculum for ourselves, or we may meet with them when we are thinking of reincarnating to get their opinion of where we should concentrate our learning next. Revising our learning plan is the purpose of the Learning Review. During these, our spirit guide is with us for support and to hear the advice we receive from the elders. In his book, Destiny of Souls, Dr. Newton writes about Emmanuel, a soul who met with the council after completing his recent visit to Earth. Emmanuel described to Dr. Newton how he was welcomed by the chairman directing the council discussion. The chairman told Emmanuel not to think of the wise ones as superiors. The meeting was for his benefit. Emmanuel's spirit guide recapped the learning goals they created for that life. Then the council asked how well Emmanuel felt he accomplished his goals in his recent life. Emmanuel tried to impress the elders by talking about how he gave jobs to many people during the Great Depression. Emmanuel continued to present his accomplishments to the council, but his thoughts drifted to memories of how he couldn't avoid conflicts and angry disagreements with his employees. He also remembered selfishly spending money accumulating material possessions because those made him feel good. He tried to balance out these negative thoughts by telling the council he gave lots of money to charities. Emmanuel heard the council's thoughts that they were not there to judge or punish him. They wanted him to look at himself through the unconditional love they had for him so he could forgive himself for his shortcomings. Then they reminded him about a significant accomplishment he achieved during a random incident at a bus stop. Emmanuel was confused by what bus stop incident they were referring to. The council sent images to his consciousness to remind him. In these images, he saw himself walking hurriedly to work and coming upon a bus stop where he spotted a woman crying. He went and sat next to her to comfort her, even though doing so felt unnatural for him. Eventually, he calmed the woman and continued on his way to work. Dr. Newton asked Emmanuel how he felt about them bringing up the bus stop incident. He replied that it seemed crazy that he spent an entire lifetime giving money to charity, but they were more impressed by that simple, singular act where he learned to comfort a stranger. Here we are reminded that it is the small acts of kindness and selfless acts where we get nothing in return that teach us the most valuable lessons. In heaven as on earth, acts of unconditional love and kindness hold the greatest value for teaching us the most important lesson of love.